With Northern Ave, we can be really creative and innovative. This is not simply just building a bridge. This is making a connection. This is connecting all of our city. It's something that people, when they come to our city, should want to have to see what the Northern Ave Bridge will look like. And that's really what we want to see here.
As a juror for competitions, you're looking for innovative ideas, ideas that challenge the program, challenge assumptions about the city, challenge the way that we understand the urban environment.
I guess I knew going into this that it's a really hard problem to solve. And what I found that completely blew me away was the range of creative ideas, and that when you ask people to say, you know, here, solve this problem, people come at it from incredibly different directions, bringing all of their creativity and inspiration and dreams. And so much of that was evident in the proposals, and it was really exciting to see that both our local architects really came in force, but also people from around the world came and brought their ideas to this bridge and trying to figure out how to reinvent it.
I think it was really great that the organizers of the competition made a very broad appeal by inviting submissions that were in verbal form only. So we had the usual in the sense that, you know, there are a lot of architects and landscape architects and artists working in the region. And so we had what you would expect, and then we had a set of essays, some of which were really beautiful. And, you know, in the end, we're talking about ideas. Whether they're drawn or written, it begins with ideas. And so some of the written submissions were absolutely riveting.
Most beneficial for me about the process were the workings of the jury and the ability for me to learn more about what the community prioritizes, at least this community, because this, again, I recognize that this is, you know, this is a community of architects and preservationists and others, whereas if you talked to the developers, which is what I spend a lot of time doing, you get a completely different perspective. So, which is much more commercial in nature and commuting in nature, whereas learning more about these elements helped me to really realize what is really needed to get an end product that really is satisfactory to all.
Coming here, I saw this as an opportunity to sort of use the bridge as a metaphorical bridge to also bring neighborhoods together. A lot of what really sung through from the submissions had to do with keeping the current infrastructure or the current fabric of the bridge intact, and sort of working with that in multiple ways, multiple creative ways. So I think that really sung through. Really having the bridge connect beyond itself and really start to tie together the disparate aspects of the design district along with downtown and along with the federal sort of government area really came up.
The bridge has still got this kind of warm and wonderful place in our hearts. It's got incredible history. Some of these designs, as we saw, can really found this wonderful way of blending history and the future. And obviously respected the idea that it could be a real wonderful pedestrian bicycle treasure.
So out of the three themes, history, destination, and mobility, they made sense to me, and I felt like destination was the one that really stood out in terms of the themes, because bridges, they usually have one purpose, and that's to get from one point to the other, you know, across an obstacle like the river. And I feel like creating a destination as opposed to just having a place where you walk across was really, really important, and a really, really good and innovative way to repurpose this bridge. And a lot of the pieces and submissions did a good job of that.
The projects that I found most compelling were those that did understand the bridge as public space. So one could imagine that the bridge is understood at a most basic level as a way of connecting from point A to point B. But to transform that bridge into a public space, usually involving the instrument of landscape, was quite fascinating. And I think it's a really powerful agenda for the bridge to carry with it the responsibility to become a public space. And by this I mean truly public and civic, not retail, not necessarily commercially driven. I think it's a nuanced discussion, but how do we make public space, contemporary public space in the United States today? I think it's a really critical and vital question.
We decided what we were really focusing on was pulling out the best concepts and ideas, and that any one of these could be incorporated in an end product that involved traffic. And again, the range of traffic options is also very fluid depending on, you know, how you look at it. I mean, some would advocate for a full two-way bridge to relieve congestion, whereas we also think in the courthouse it's critical for security reasons to make sure, you know, we can get it out, you know, in the event of an emergency as expeditiously as possible. But yes, like I said, it would have been too much actually for this group, I think, to really grapple with that issue, but instead to look at things that could be incorporated with it if it's incorporated later by the city.
So I think maybe we'd like to say takeaways. My big takeaway is that we could find a way of honoring the bridge's history and the site's history, not by simply preserving the Northern Avenue Bridge, which we're told cannot be done. I think the city still has to make that case, but I think they may have the goods to make that case. But what the competition tells me is that we will have a hybrid, something invented between the existing fabric of the bridge and something very new.
A long time ago, we had this notion of a horticultural garden in the southern sections of the Greenway parcels. And what I saw was this incredible botanical proposal that really looked at the bridge as a place for not only connectivity and history, but also this notion of being a connection to the Greenway and this botanical idea that we once had. And it was great to see that be kind of restored in this new imaginative way. And it was very exciting.
And the one that I'm doing is called Islands in the Stream, which it's really hard not to hear that music in my ear. And I wish maybe they hadn't picked that title. It's really funny. But the team decided to pivot the bridge and turn it into a park, but basically let it decay, which I think is a really interesting idea, so that you don't spend enormous amounts of money trying to recreate history or make it work like it used to do. And instead they did that, and then they actually ran a new bridge that was super simple, that boats could get under from one embankment to the other right through it. And so, like, not only does that capture placemaking and make a connection and create a destination, it does all three really beautifully. And the group really explained it very poetically. So for me, that one, as far as sort of thinking about how to practically take this forward, it didn't have a huge price tag attached to it.
There's one design that involves taking the middle span of the bridge and leaving it in the center, and then connecting, you know, a new bridge over the top of it, but then the middle span remains and has green space and space to walk in. And that looked like a nice compromise because it retained some of the elements of the old bridge, but really the functionality of the bridge is all new.
I think the idea of the urban history and integrating the past with its future and being projective about that future is a really important lesson for the city. I do not believe that we should be overly nostalgic. I believe, and at the same time, I really believe that there's potential for us to take this historical, really interesting structural artifact and give it a new life that speaks to contemporary issues.
My narrow group of 30, I had 5 or 6 essays that I had to go through, and out of all of those essays, there was only one that really spoke to me, and that was the one about a seaport district and turning the bridge into a place where local fishermen and local farmers can come to and, you know, promote their business, because promoting a small business in the city is very difficult, and creating the bridge and using it as a form factor for that, I thought it really spoke well to the district, and it really paid homage to the district's history and a history of fishermen and stuff like that.
But the essay I'm presenting on, one, it was eloquent and really elegant, and I feel like sort of bringing eloquence and elegance to bear on how we think about what should happen with the bridge by having it sort of, and everybody after they read it, they just felt different. And I was like, having aesthetics matter in what happens with the bridge versus function, I think matters.
Well, so there are a few things about the bridge, you know, its image quality, the fact that it was a kind of engineering breakthrough for its time, 3 barrels, Pratt truss, a real original then. Also the kind of urban decay part of it, which is, maybe you could say it's almost poetic, in that there it sits, you know, kind of languoring in the channel. There is a beauty in that.
The bridge obviously fell into more and more disrepair. We just recently did a study of the South Boston waterfront. So the bridge's value now is really shined as more of this iconic structure in this gateway, and much more of a pedestrian and bicycle accommodation than anything else.
Well, I hope that the city will continue to seek public engagement. In my practice, La Dolman Architects, we've done a number of projects that involve bridges, and bridges are an incredibly interesting infrastructure, a piece of infrastructure of the city. They're vital to questions of connectivity, to how the city operates on a daily basis. And in the tradition of the United States, it's not really very common for architects to be architects and designers to be really very involved in civil engineering projects. In fact, that's mostly the domain of engineers. And so I think this is quite an interesting way. Designers think very differently than engineers. And so I think that the idea that this competition raises a certain level of awareness about the possibilities, as well as, again, challenging the brief, challenging assumptions, I think is really interesting and important thing that the city has done here.
You know, amongst the jurors, one of the things that's natural is, and one of the things I know the city will have a great opportunity to do, is you start taking bits and pieces of each one of the ideas and finding how you can make the one great idea. And that's the beauty of this design competition and this ideas competition, is that the city's now in this place where it has this kind of treasure chest of wonderful ideas that it can glean from and think through relative to its responsibilities of the actual reality of designing and constructing the bridge.
Well, I think they can continue to keep the public in the process in a number of ways, to keep public hearings and whatnot as designs progress, as the city actually develops what, you know, incorporates the interests of the property owners as well as some of these individuals who've submitted to this contest, that as the final design develops, just to continue to get feedback from this group and others in terms of, you know, what the various reactions are. But I do think, as I said, that there were a lot of ideas that came forth here that can be incorporated in part in whatever the city chooses to do going forward.
Making the bridge fun, making it a place where people show up to and enjoy, was really was showed up in a lot of designs. And so, not just thinking about the bridge as a infrastructure, but thinking about the bridge as destination, and really thinking about it as a place that's fun, and fun in ways that are non-monetary.
These ideas bubble up to become sort of a set of design guidelines for the city to use going forward. So maybe not the exact solution, but what each solution produced was, oh wow, this is really important to do X. you know, or this idea we never thought of, but yeah, we really want to tell the city, don't forget about this. And so we will work to sort of craft that vision going forward and hopefully stay involved in the process so that you can't really, I think once you let this genie out of the bottle, so yeah, once you let the genie out of the bottle, it's really hard to cap it again and then just say, oh, it's just too expensive to do anything. We need to wipe away the bridge and, you know, walk away, or build one that looks like a highway bridge, or, you know, it's just really hard to do. But I read from the city's engagement in this process and Mayor Walsh's appearance today that there is some real commitment there.
Well, I guess my takeaway would be the consideration that Boston has for its people and how it really wants this city to be made by and for the people. So this competition was really a way to get people involved, more involved, and it shows that Boston is not a place where the legislators and the people who are running the city are just taking control of everything. So it really shows how Boston is inclusive, and it really takes into consideration, you know, you live in this city, you have a voice in this city, and we want you and your voice, and we want you to be a part of the city. So.